This new Superman series begins back in World War II, where the American bomb dropped onto Nagasaki is revealed to be a super being dropped from the skies. In the present, a series of satellites have been plummeting towards the Earth. 8 in total, Superman has stopped 6, deciding to let one crash onto an abandoned military base and is currently stopping the last. In classic Superman fashion, he not only protects the astronauts but inactivates the satellite's nuclear core before stopping any impact. A suspicious Supes tracks down the imprisoned Lex Luthor, accusing him of having something to do with the malware that infected the satellite system. Luthor smugly reminds Superman his research on the topic was stolen by the cyber-terrorist organization Ascension. An unconvinced Superman leaves him alone for now and uses the satellite experience to write a human interest piece on the astronauts he saved. He shortly after gets a call from Lois Lane mocking him for getting his facts wrong. She says Superman stopped all 8 satellites, evidenced by the fact that the abandoned base is still intact. A curious Superman investigates, finding the 26,000-pound satellite with a handprint on it. But before he learns more, he is fired on by an American sub, which relays Superman's discovery back to General Lane in a hidden base in the southwest. Despite others' concern, Lane is not worried that Superman will find his base and its hidden weapons, and even if he does, he'll only find the American weapon against him, the real Superman.
So it looks like the US military has their own Superman? What do you think this guy's origins are?
I have no idea. I'm curious if it's science-based origin, or maybe he's Kryptonian in some way.
Or just another alien or something.
There's so many possibilities. We know so little about him, but it seems like he's working for the government, but he's also kind of imprisoned by the government.
Are they forcing him to work for them, or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they have some control mechanism that's just driving his actions. In which case, that means maybe he's a future ally.
Hard to say, but it's definitely convenient that General Lane is in charge of his program.
This just means Lois is going to come up in his life even more than normal.
Although she always has a part to play in, him solving big problems. But this new Superman isn't necessarily the only villain. There was talk of a terrorist group called Ascension, and we also saw Lex Luthor.
Luthor was being transported to another prison.
The Maw.
Awesome name. I'm not sure where he fits into this.
I think he might be behind the whole terrorist group Ascension, but it's kind of hard to say. We know that he's worked his way back in with the politicians now, saying he'll do public works for Metropolis.
I loved how his plan is to make Metropolis be powered by the sun, just like Superman.
Yeah, just trying to one-up him. But I always love Lex Luthor as a villain, so I'm definitely glad he'll be around in the first arc at least.
Moving into just Superman, I liked how Snyder really established him in this first issue. He established his powers, established his backstory, where he comes from, and really established his motive as well.
Definitely. The opening scene where he's stopping that satellite was just so great. I loved how it showed that even though he's Superman, the most powerful being on the planet, he's not all powerful. He had to deal with panicked astronauts potentially killing themselves, and it wasn't necessarily easy for him to save the station and the astronauts.
What I liked about that scene is that as he's plummeting towards Earth, the only way he can really think of it is going back to his country roots of jumping off of a silo, which I think really highlights who Superman is. At his heart, he's still just a country kid, and I think that's very important.
Definitely. In Superman Unchained, he isn't working at the Daily Planet in this series, just like in Superman, but he'd rather work on human interest pieces and, fight for the underdog, the common man.
I liked how Jimmy Olsen is still kind of like his sidekick. Even though he doesn't really work with him, he's still showing up, giving him food.
They're roommates. Plus, I also like Jimmy Olsen talking about trying to get a photo of Bruce Wayne. He's like, the guy's ripped. And then Clark says he pads his suit.
It seems that Snyder really put an emphasis on introducing every important character in Superman's life, and we saw Lois Lane as well in this issue.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Snyder addresses kind of their romantic history at all, especially with Wonder Woman in the mix and kind of the larger DC universe.
And now that General Lane is going to be the antagonist initially,
just complicates things even further. But as a grade for Superman Unchained #1, what would you give it?
I'd give this issue a 3.5 out of 5. I have never been a Superman fan, but if anyone can make me like the character, it's Scott Snyder. A solid first issue that gives us the status quo for a lot of main characters and introduces a new formidable opponent.
I'm going to give this issue a 4.5 out of 5. I think the reason I like it so much is because it's so hard to find a good Superman story. The last great one I can think of is Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. And with Snyder at the helm, this looks like it could be in the same vein.
Thanks for watching B3 Comics' review of Superman Unchained #1. Before we go, we have a question for you.
With Scott Snyder writing Superman and Superman Unchained, what other comic series would you like to see Snyder try?
I'd love to see him take on Teen Titans because that's been trash so far, and man, do I want to see that be better.
I'm going to one-up you and say I'd like to see him take on the Justice League, because that way he could write not only Batman and Superman, but, you know, just all the heavy hitters of the DC universe.
Jeff Johns at least has done well. Scott Lobdell has done terribly.
Leave your answer below in the comments, and if you like our video, give us a thumbs up.